Welcome to Amalgam Hour, the movie and comic podcast. I'm Robin.
I'm done.
Okay, so we're doing a video where the title is definitely not just ripped off from Comic Pop. Don't look into that. Definitely isn't true. We're going to be doing Tom King styled stories. And some people might not know what that means. Tom King, other than his Batman work, which we've both read and is a bit, you know,
Huh?
Tom King's usual stuff, like Vision, which WandaVision loosely based off, ever so loosely. And then
Dog.
Mr. Yeah,
It's all across the
it's like Vision is technically in a show and in a book. That's the only similarity. But then, like, 1,000 comic based websites was like, oh my god, read this book that has inspired WandaVision. I'm like, that's just simply not true. He also worked on Mr. Miracle, so these are going to be stories where he takes a character quite unknown, or like not unknown because Vision's known, but a character you don't usually get. Yeah, exactly. No one loves Vision, no one loves Mr. Miracle. But once his Tom King book came out, you might be like, okay, I kind of love Mr. Miracle now. So we're going to take characters who don't usually get their own stories and turn them into dark, deep, sort of genre-induced graphic novels. And I'm starting today because Daniel's scared. Okay, now my first character for the Tom King treatment. Daniel, do you know a little character called Sideways?
Oh. I mean, yes, because you told me, but no.
Yes, but no. So if anyone doesn't know, like Dan doesn't, he looks like DC Spider-Man. Because 100% that's what he is. And he comes out of was it an event after Dark Knight's Metal? Where it was like the Dark Metal verse or whatever. Where they just made 1,000 characters. And they were like, we need new readers, Dan. We need new readers. Let's make Spider-Man and Hulk, but we'll call him Damage. And we'll make the Terrifics, the Fantastic Four. And then Sideways got 2 small books. And then just never appeared again. And I quite like Sideways. His powers are he can open portals to step into other realities. Like, usually he just uses it to, like, teleport away. And then maybe sometimes he'll open a portal to, like, a fire dimension and kill someone with it. You know? That's simple.
Yeah.
So this story is going to be Sideways starts off, and he's a lot about, like, technology and, like, vlogging. So imagine he's just vlogging on a rooftop, being like, oh my god, what's up, superhero? That's me vlogging, by the way. This is why Infernum doesn't have a vlog channel. Because, god, drive me insane. And then he's like, oh shit. And there's just a Justice League versus Mixel-Pidalic fight. Because of course there is. Because why not? You know?
As well.
And it doesn't have to be... It can be set within an already established story, but probably not. And it's like, his entire thing, he's trying to, like, teleport into it, but every time he does, like, Batman will swing away, Superman will fly away, and he's just trying to get anyone's attention at this point. To be like, hey, I'm working with the Justice League, you know? That sort of thing. Because I don't think anyone in the Justice League has met Sideways. I don't think anyone has met Sideways except the character of Tempest Fugonaut. If you can tell me their backstory, you deserve a cookie. Because I can't tell you. I've read the books. So he's doing that, and he's teleporting, and he just wants to try and help, and he's like, Batman, how can I help? And as soon as he teleports next to it, next to Batman, he literally just grapples away because he's needed somewhere else in the fight. And they're not being mean to him, but this does make him feel like low and worthless for a bit, which is fair. Yeah. And then Justice League, obviously the only way to defeat Mixel-Pidalic is if you make him say his name backwards, which, what sort of weakness is that, by the way? How does that work? I've never read or watched a story where someone actually makes him say his name backwards. Because I don't understand.
Supergirl episode.
I watched the cool parts of that episode. I didn't watch the ending of that episode.
She made him write it down. It was not good.
I just don't understand how it's possible. But yeah, so they're all fighting, And he's obviously being obnoxious and loud and being like, I want everyone to have fun. And it's like, and then he looks at Superman and it's like, you're not powerful enough these days, which is, and I want to kind of do a reference to like the 60s comics where he would like drag the earth by a huge chain or punch the universe in half. Do you get what I mean? He makes a reference to that and he clicks his fingers and all of a sudden everyone's powers heighten to the next level and they can't control it. You know?
Yeah.
So Wonder Woman becomes like a huge She-Hulk-esque person because she's just huge and ripped. You know? The lasso of truth starts making everyone tell the truth around them. You know?
Yeah.
Aquaman all of a sudden can only breathe underwater and he just starts like doesn't have enough water, whatever. However fish work. Superman's like lasering like Metropolis and like doing supernovas after one another. And I was trying to think what would happen if you make Batman's powers in quotes. And I was like, nothing would happen because he doesn't have any. But to Mixel Pitlick, who's kind of like a fourth breaking, would he just become the like kind of the most edgiest and untrustful Batman possible? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you read a Batman comic, his powers are detective and his traits are like dark and gloomy and untrustworthy and can like break someone's weaknesses and strengths down on a molecular levels, you know? So that's just what happens. He starts not trusting anyone and he like backs himself into a corner and just pulls out the kryptonite ring and everything. Flash, and I want to allude to when Flash went so fast he just disappeared into the Speed Force. He became a skeleton for whatever reason. So that happened. But
Crisis.
yeah, that story. Never read it. I just know that he turned into a skeleton.
Yeah.
So Sideways is caught in this blast as well. So all of a sudden portals just started opening up and they're like letting an ocean in and there's the fire dimension and he's just panicking. And it's kind of like the thing where his powers are being overwhelmed in this moment. And then he just falls through one of the portals. Yeah? Now stick with me. And by the way, the title of this story is Sideways Through Time and Space.
Okay.
Which I love that title. It'll make sense. And then all of a sudden, so he steps, like, he's just fallen through his own portal, and then he stands up, and he's in, like, Victorian England.
Yeah.
You know? Victorian England, as they come, sort of steampunk-ish, I guess. And he's just walking through, but looking like DC Spider-Man. So he doesn't fit there at all. And he's just walking around kind of just like, what the hell? And he's trying to open another portal, but he can't. Kind of like his powers are a little bit squiffy. He can, but it's like he can teleport like 10 foot away. Or he can open to the fire dimension, but he can't get back to his time or wherever he just was. You know?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's walking down a corridor and then just a side of a building blasts open as this sort of gross... It almost looks like a bunch of bodies just crushed together, like into a huge slug form, and they're just like barreling through this place. Okay? Just stick with me.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden
Sort of,
he
yeah.
sees a huge black cape like go across the skyline and throw batarangs into this creature as it's like going through this small village town, and he's like scaring horses and stuff. Whatever. And then he's like, oh shit, Batman, let's go. Teleports next to him. And then he teleports next to him and then goes, Batman. And he just gets an elbow to the face immediately. And he's like, why? And then he just gets tackled to the ground. And he's like, what the heck is going on? And then as a reader of this comic, it then zooms out and you see he has been tackled to the ground by Gotham by Gaslight's Batman.
Yeah.
Okay? So he is in the Gotham by Gaslight universe.
Oh yeah, that's a different universe.
Yeah, entirely. And that thing he was chasing was this version's, or this universe's version of Clayface.
Yeah.
See? Do with that. And then all I have is ideas of him going to other universes. Like in this one, it's probably of the Flashpoint thing where he has to explain to Batman what's going on and where he comes from. And then they will team up to get rid of Clayface, you know?
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, and it's just a tiny little adventure, like 10 panels, done. And then Batman's like caged him up to, and I kind of want to allude to like the Frankenstein thing, where it's like a lightning bolt made him. He like chains him up to like a chapel, and then a lightning bolt's about to come, and that will, Batman like infers that it will remove the Clayface part, as if it's actual a bunch of people who have all been formed together. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't think they've done Clayface. I think they've done like the Joker and maybe Man-Bat, and that's about it. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, whatever. And then Clayface is about to fall and land on Sideways, and then he opens a portal behind him and falls through, and then closes it before Clayface can. And then he opens his eyes, and he's no longer in Victorian whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And then he looks around, and he's like, where the fuck am I? And he sees a bunch of soldiers wearing like green, carrying like stuff, and they walking away. And some people see him and then go like running off, shouting about another superhero. And he's like, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden, vroom! He just gets like Superman just comes out of nowhere and grabs him. And then, as a comic reader, you just so happen to look onto Superman's chest, and maybe you see the communist logo there. You know?
Oh god.
Oh no. Yes, so he's in Red Sun universe. And the main theme of this story is how comics during the 90s were dark and depressing. Okay? Yeah. That's the theme. And it's like a meta theme, but it's Sideways is feeling depressed when he's in those times. And then he's also like, why does this exist? How can people live like this? This sort of thing. So this entire section is literally Sideways trying to explain it to Superman as Superman's chasing him down. You know?
Yeah, but the Superman's from Mother Russia. He doesn't care.
Yes, exactly. And this is after like Batman's been killed and that sort of thing, but it's not before he's turned good. Do you get what I mean?
I've never read the story, so I don't know if he did get turned good. But
he gets. I'm pretty sure he gets turned good in the end. Something, whatever, don't care. But yeah, so it's literally him just being chased down at this point. And then the thing happens where he is, and I want there to be a running monologue where he's just like, how can people live like this? Superman is evil and he's happy, like, and I want the start of the story to be he's not happy where he is in the world at that moment, you know, where he's being ignored by the Justice League and everything. He's just like, this sucks. But then he goes to all these places and he realizes, no, this sucks a hell of a lot more.
Yeah.
You know? And then obviously Red Sun is about to like heat blast, like laser vision, Sideways. He opens a portal, he falls into it. Yet again, he's in sort of a Victorian time. He's like, what the fuck? And he walks down an alley and he sees a woman there bleeding out of her neck. He's like, what is going on? And there's a guy like running out of this alleyway. And he's like, I'm confused. Where the hell am I now? Like, is Gotham by Gaslight Batman here? Let's go find him. And then all of a sudden, Batman appears over the edge of the building. Sideways looks up and he sees Batman is a huge hulking creature with vampire-like fangs. He is now in Batman Blood Rain. That story where Batman's a vampire. And yet again, it's him running away, just being like, this sucks even more. But this time, he's kind of, because it's like a flying creature, he learned from the Superman thing to sort of how to deal with a flying creature, do you get what I mean? Like how to combat that. And how, like, he can, throughout this story, he begins to push himself to limits he didn't even know, like physically, mentally, that sort of thing. Yet again, he's about to get bit, falls into another universe. Oh my god, what's going on? This shit crazy. And then, because obviously, this just isn't going to stop. And he's just like, at this point, he's just trying to get home. And he's trying to open portals to his own over and over and over again, and he's getting like water universes and and fire universe. He just keeps opening that same portal. He's like, I don't want to go there. No, I'll be a bit crispy by the time I get back out of it. And this one, I don't know whether it work, but he falls into a universe into the middle of a fight between Superman and Batman in his Dark Knight Rises armor.
Oh, see, that time.
Yeah, he's there now. And I don't know what that story could be, whether he teams up with Superman, Batman, whatever. Because who cares? I've never read that story, and I'm not going to.
To be honest, I thought you were going down an Injustice route then.
Ooh, I could. This is the type of thing where whatever thematically makes sense, you could put it in. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, instead of... Because all I have here is a Batman story, a Superman story, a Batman story, a Batman story. Do you get what I mean? Because I was trying to think of, like, what stories came out in, like, the 90s that was quite deep and dark, and Elseworlds in another universe for, like, Wonder Woman. And then my brain just was like, and it's just drawing a blank. I was like, oh, it's just going to be Batman.
Wonder Woman is only, like, in Flashpoint and Injustice.
I guess he could go to the Flashpoint universe, but I kind of want it to
Doesn't
be...
really exist.
Exactly. I kind of want it to be, like, the 90s story, so that's the whole reason why I didn't choose Injustice. You know? And then at the end of that, whoever he's fighting, maybe he's been attacked by the mutant gang, or, you know, whatever. Teleports himself out. And by this point, he is ragged. His clothes are torn. Because to him, this has been like 4 hours of his life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like he's been attacked by Superman, Vampire Batman, Clayface, you know? And it just goes on and on and on. And then he teleports in to Metropolis again. And he's like, oh, great. And he's like trying to look around for this fight that he's just come from. And then he goes and he thinks he sees Superman or like whatever, goes next to it. He realizes that it's a statue of Superman. And he's like, wonder what that means. Whatever. He then like, F it, I'm going to go find Batman. Because it's like, Gotham by Gaslight Batman, help me. Batman, and then this is sort of where it alludes to Flashpoint, where as soon as Flash is in another universe, he's like, I'm going to go find Batman. Like, Batman will help. So he just teleports into Gotham, and he's like, hello? Just trying to make just like a huge portal in the sky, because he knows that will get Batman's thing. Or he can teleport to the GCPD and then turn on the bat signal, you know?
Yeah.
And then he turns around, and then he hears from behind him, like, who are you? He turns around, and Batman stood in front of him. But this is Azrael Batman.
Oh, God.
He is now in the 90s, where Batman was Azrael, and where was Superman during this time? Dead. Yeah, that was his, like, memorial statue that he's seen. And he's like, excuse me? And now, because Azrael in the comics now is like an anti-hero. Sometimes they use him, but most of the times they don't. So I want to see Sideways versus Azrael. And I want to see Azrael just going crazy. And this is by, like, the end of his craziness. Where, like, in a few issues, he's going to get defeated by normal Batman. They're fighting, and then all of a sudden, a plot starts happening out of an event, which you definitely don't know, Dan, called Bloodlines, where I'm pretty sure interdimensional aliens come down, and they suck the spinal juice out of people to create a huge version of themselves, whatever. And 10% of the time, if they suck out your spinal juice, you will get powers. And pretty much all I want Sideways to see is someone's spine getting sucked out. And he's like, no. No. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Because so in the 90s, Bloodline story happened, and it was the only event where Azrael was Batman in it. You know?
Yeah.
And they're at the start of it with, the story went on for so long. The start of it, Superman was dead. By the end of the story, Superman had already come back to life. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is ridiculous. So he's in that, and then Azrael like goes to fight the alien. He gets swatted away because it's a huge alien and it's against Azrael. That doesn't work. And then Sideways, by this point has had enough, you know?
Yeah.
And he opens like, and I want it to almost be like Endgame, where it's one person stood against this huge alien, and then a bunch of portals start opening behind him. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But obviously, it's not the Avengers that step out. And then all of a sudden, he opens so many portals, and behind him is a huge portal. That's obviously the fire dimension. So he looks cool. And then all of a sudden, armored Batman from Dark Knight Begins jumps out of one of them, attacks this creature. Gotham by Gaslight, Batman jumps out and fights this creature. Red Sun, like, is clearly just been flying through, and then has just been like a portal has opened up in front, so he just flies into this creature at Mach 3. Vampire Batman comes out, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just like he has went to the 90s and then fucked everything up. And then the fire portal changes, he goes back to his regular time, and he's watching everyone like fuck about at this point. And then so everyone's powers are going off, and to everyone else it has been 1 second. Sideways through time and space, you see? So he then ruined costume. He's probably got like batarangs, and he's been like collecting shit just by happenstance from all these universes. He just walks up to Mixel-Pitlick, who's like, "Who the hell are you?" And then just opens a portal in front of him and behind him, and then closes it. And he's just like, "Go back to your dimension, bitch." And then all the Justice League just sort of stand up as their superpowers go back to normal, and then look at him. And by this point, he's like ripped, shredded, both figuratively and like literally. And he's just at this moment, and I want it to be, he doesn't really look like DC's Spider-Man anymore. Like, he's had a bit of a costume change, you know?
Yeah.
So you can no longer call him a ripoff. And he's just stood in the middle of the Justice League, defeating an interdimensional being all by himself after surviving like 6 hours worth of horror stories from the 90s. And then his last line is like, "This place isn't so bad compared to all that other," and then it's just like beep 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 beep, just swear words, swear words, swear words, and then the book ends, and that's Sideways Through Time and Space. And I want that to set up
the name and everything.
And I want that to set up Sideways as a good character that people want to care about. And if this was about a time when DC's looking to reboot again, you know, you reboot it, because Sideways went back in time. But you know, that's another whole thing. So, and by the way, I came up with this story about 45 minutes ago, and it sort of spiraled out of control, and now I really want to write it. So that's how I'll spend the rest of my day. But go on, Dan, tell me about one of your characters.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that up.
Thank you. I'm bowing. It's a podcast where you can't see anything, but I'm bowing for sure. Don't worry. Go on, Dan.
Okay, well, thank you for listening, and that has been the end of...
That has been the Amalgam Hour podcast. Throw a name out. Who is being Tom Kingified, Dan?
Okay, we're going to give backstory to this because it's. I came up with a story idea, as I've told you, and then realised my facts are wrong, so I had to change character.
Yes. Okay.
But I want to keep the story.
So if for whatever reason you feel like this character doesn't really work in this story, that's the reason.
Yes. And also, you may be wondering, I've shown lots of evidence that I don't like this character, but this was the first thing that came up when I googled the character that fits this description that I needed.
Okay.
But Batwoman.
Okay,
She's
Batwoman.
not that popular. Nobody really cares about her.
Not in comics or in shows, so you know.
No, she has a show and nobody watches it.
Even though it's on like season 14. Carry on.
Yeah. It's got 2 viewers. But I think I've told you the concept. It's basically, hear me out. I'm trying to think because I had to change the story.
Yeah.
There's big Justice League fight going on, yeah. Big Justice League fight.
Mm-hmm.
Indian villain. It's Justice League villain.
Okay.
You're meant to say a name.
What?
I said name, but Justice League villain. You just okay.
Oh. Um. Dark Side. There you go.
Screw it. Whatever.
That's a Justice League
Yeah.
villain.
Yeah. He's doing stuff.
Yeah.
Messing with time.
Okay. Using boom tubes. I'll add there.
Yes.
He somehow
yeah.
he's worked out a way to use boom tubes to travel through time, and they're stopping him from rewriting them out the time stream. There you go. There's your story.
Yes. For some reason, that woman's here.
Okay. Why don't we do it so it's like it's not even the Justice League, it's the families. So there's like
Yes.
the Superman
Obama.
family of him, Supergirl, Power Girl, his son, Batman, his family, and there could be like Flash's family. I don't know. There you go. There's a story.
They're the only ones with families.
Exactly. Wonder Woman has a
Because-
couple, but don't ask me to name them.
Nobody cares about them. They're all just Wonder Girl, but different names.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Carry on.
She gets smacked, yeah.
Okay.
Falls through one of these boom tubes and goes back in time.
Okay.
And this is
okay.
Yeah.
Let me guess.
A
She
little-
sees a flag of some kind.
You know.
Is this called Batwoman Through Time and Space?
Yes, well done.
Oh, how'd I guess? See, getting 2 time travel stories for the price of 1 video.
To be fair, if anybody gets confused by what's going on here, I got told go dark, so I immediately thought Nazi.
Okay. So go on. What type of flag
Don't
does she
know why.
see in front of her?
A certain red flag.
She sees a
certain symbol.
swastika. Okay, she
No,
is
no,
in.
No, we're trying to get past the YouTube guidelines.
We don't get paid for these videos. She's in 1940 whatever, which is interesting.
1943.
Yeah, which is interesting because I other than Magneto, I've never seen the Holocaust tackled by Marvel or DC, which is hella interesting right now because a book about the Holocaust, which is like the most famous comic, has now been banned in schools and stuff. So
Interesting.
there you go. But now we have Batwoman instead. Go.
Yeah. One of the first things that's going to happen is she's going to get taken because she's Jewish, which is
Obviously.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. We're working in DC's timeline of that. And I bet there's like Nazi DC villains, you could bring in. Because if this was in Marvel,
probably.
you could so easily do it. You could. I think Captain Nazi is a DC villain. Which is a real character. But whatever.
Captain Nazi.
Yes. I'm not even joking to you. It's Captain Nazi. So let's say he's there. He brings him in. Whatever.
Captain Nazi is a character.
Yeah, see? I'm not lying to you.
Yeah.
I know my Nazi characters for some reason.
That's fair. I'll
Okay.
allow it.
So she
I
gets
know,
captured.
Yeah. I've seen this guy.
So she gets captured. Is there another story
Yes.
to this, or is she just in prison for the rest of her life?
My
and it's quite
idea.
sad? Okay.
Yeah, I hate her show so much, I would send her back in time and put her in a Nazi
Yeah, to the
Put her in a
worst
gas chamber.
moment in history. That's how much you
and put her in
hate
a
it.
gas chamber and ended it.
No.
Okay. Story's finished. That's how much I hate that show.
Which we're not trying to like make fun of this. This is just a fun time like experiment because it's also interesting
Yes.
because DC has a lot of characters who are back there like Sergeant Rock and stuff who I'm pretty sure aren't in the new continuity and stuff, but you could involve them and whatever like old
Could.
Nazi
I was
stories.
I was just thinking, you could. Because in some DC things, the superhero things back then was the Justice Society of America.
That's true.
In
That's
olden
true.
times.
Well,
could.
it'd have to be a really young version of them. But I don't know what the continuity is anymore. Like, are they in another universe?
DC's all
or-
over the place, and
Let's just say
we
they're
can just
there.
say the continuity we're choosing
Yeah.
that this is set in.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah, could have her meet those and have a little adventure before she goes to Nazi camp.
That could be cool. Like she becomes, because there's no Batman on that team, you know.
Oh.
She could become like
Could have a few adventures, and
that's
she gets
cool.
taken.
But the fact she's actually dealing with like the horror of that time, and it's like showing the readers what it was actually like and stuff. And this isn't a type where a writer just sort of guesses. This is like factual look, like deep knowledge and stuff, you know.
And I want to, like, you can have like the fun superhero stuff.
Of
They
course,
just say in the Justice Societies you can have some fun superhero stuff
yeah,
before then, and
yeah,
then when she gets taken by, I don't know, Captain Natty or whatever,
yeah.
put
Like there's a
in there.
heel. There's like a screeching of the tiles heel turn as she goes from doing superhero
So it's like-
adventures.
It's like a fight with, like, she's with the Justice Society. It's a big fight.
Yeah.
She gets taken. The Justice Society thinks she gets killed,
That's yeah.
so that they can't just. Otherwise, it would just be we'll just have them go in and save her.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
But wait, this started off as a Nightcrawler story, and I got my facts wrong.
Yeah. Catholic.
But I want to see when she's in there. I want to see a story where it's like she hasn't got like, because whenever there's a member of the Bat family, they always have. They either have call Batman and he deals with their problems,
Yeah.
or they have this suit that can take anything, all these
Yeah.
gadgets. I want to see someone have to escape a situation like that,
Yeah.
but with none of the gadgets, just using their own skill.
That's absolutely fine. Well, I don't know a lot about her character. Is she like smart, intelligent, or is it just like?
She's a member of the Bat family. She has to be smart and intelligent.
That's fair enough. But I thought she was one where she sort of squeezed her way in just by happenstance.
She's Batman's cousin. She can do what she wants.
Really?
Yeah, she's Batman's cousin.
I never knew any of this, but fair enough. That's cool.
I'm just gonna say, this type of continuity is similar to the show where she was in like academy training and
Because it could either
sort of
be
thing.
she uses her training to get out of that situation, and I'm guessing she probably like helps free people and that sort of stuff. And it's
big,
like like there's doom and gloom for like an issue and a half of her just living in that, and then there's half an issue where she escapes, and there's actually a moment of like
kindness,
freedom
and relief.
and relief. Yeah, and she helps everyone get out, and she could either get recaptured or just think about it again and just say, "Go on, carry on."
Go on. I was gonna say, I want this to end past-wise dark,
Yeah,
but for her wise, her going back. But at the end, because I can't change history too much, when they get out,
yeah,
she ends up finding a way to get back to the future because she has to.
okay,
You don't want to have her stuck in the past.
yeah,
But then once she's freed them all, and then she's obviously let them all free, she goes back. I want the last thing to be set back in the past, and that everything she's done mean nothing.
yeah, okay, yeah,
What I mean?
yeah. So it's like no matter
What she does, these bad things still have happen.
and there's no way of undoing it now, and that could always be like when she's in the future, she goes to like a museum, or she goes to like she goes to like a memorial, and she sees the names of people she knew and stuff, and she like puts a wreath down, and then the last thing is her like contacting Batman, and like, and then it cuts to like a few weeks later, and this memorial is now huge and spread across whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that would be a great ending. I was also thinking, because you said she doesn't stay in that time. What if she does? Because they're not doing anything with her currently, I don't think. What if she stays back in time and then Batman's just looking on a computer like, where did Batwoman go? And then like researches the name, and now a new search comes up of Batwoman.
Yeah, you like
Batwoman, the like Nazi hunter or whatever, and it's an old-timey picture of her in front, like ripping apart a Nazi flag or stuff, surrounded by survivors.
We
and
could
stuff.
just like see like a picture of say like the JSA from back in the day, and there's just a new member.
Yeah. Do you know there's a really iconic picture of them all around a table? What if now there's one extra space and there's just Batwoman there, like thing, and it's like maybe a thing where like she has a chance to go into the future, you know, like a boom tube opens up like, and it connects to the future fight where, say, she goes through that portal and then that boom tube breaks, but then during the fight, like Batman fixes it or something, you know,
Try and
and
get her back.
yeah. And then it could be even cool if he jumps in to go and help her, and then she has to explain to him that she is going to stay. And for the reasons of that, because it's like, it could be the usual thing where she escapes the heist, she gets out with loads of people, but one by one they get kidnapped as they're escaping. So she finally runs across a field, jumps a fence, and gets onto the other end. But by the time she's looked around her, she's the only one who's actually gotten out. You know? And then Batman comes and she's like, I have to stay, Bruce. I'm sorry. Like, and then you could even do a cool thing in a future story where, like, it could be a cool thing where, because time would constantly be rewritten because of that, he keeps Googling her or, like, trying to get as much info as he can. And one time he sees, like, a picture of her holding, like, the American flag, but the American flag has a bunch of numbers on it. And then he like teams up with Cyborg and the Flash to travel back in time to that exact location and time and date. And she's now like an old, or not old, but like older and more like, and like, oh, that could be so cool if the date that's on there is when World War II ends. So they go
Maybe
and
the dates changed.
or not even that the date's changed, just she has a date. That is when World War II ended, because she hasn't ended the war. She just helped a bunch of people along the way. Do you get what I mean?
She's not a Captain America. She's
No,
a Batwoman.
She's and it could be cool where she becomes a soldier type thing, you know, where she has like a soldier's uniform, but it's Batmanified. That could be quite cool. You know, they go back in time to that exact date World War II ended. And she's now there waiting for them to pick her up. And she's obviously a few years older, and she's lived all of this time. That's... If someone explained that to me, that would make me want to read Batwoman. You know?
Yeah.
Because that's actually interesting. And that's...
Could work with probably any other member of the Bat family.
It could, I guess.
The only reason it's really her is because she's the only Jewish
and member, it would be cool if people are like, yeah, well, why did you send her back? Because she's Jewish. She then thinks about family.
Also lesbian as well, so that kind of...
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, to them, she is so abnormal compared to what it is now, you know? And then it could also be a thing where she's there and she thinks about what her family members have gone through, what her ancestors has gone through, you know, stories she was told as a kid that have been inherited down from one another, you know? And you know there's got to be a thing where she meets someone with the same last name as her, that sort of thing. And
it's her great-grandfather or something.
Yeah, and it'd be so cool if he becomes like her sidekick of that time. Like, he doesn't put on an outfit, but he becomes like the Bucky Barnes sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know? That could be quite cool. Okay, I like your story now.
Yeah. It started off a mess.
Yeah. But Dan...
Came together.
Do you know who else is a Jewish superhero who you can make travel back in time and then help all of this?
Oh, go on.
Moon Knight, my boy. He gets sent back in time because of Kang. And I could go on for...
changes universe.
Well, no, because Tom King has written for both Marvel and DC. So you could just do it in Marvel's universe. He goes back in time, he fights whoever the fudge was back there. I do actually like your story now. Now that we've explained it and like
to cross over.
Exactly. But now that we've actually expanded the Batwoman through time story, what would you call that? Maybe you just put
time and space.
You know, you're just ripping off my side paper. Or you could just put like Batwoman World War II. Like that. Even that.
You know they call it something stupid like Batwoman Jewish and proud.
Yeah. Which is like, that would be like a good sort of theme to have it, where it's like, she is Jewish and she is proud of that, but just putting it on the cover is just a bit, you know? But that is actually a good story now. I like that. So Sideways Through Time and Batwoman World War Two.
Yes.
I kind of want to draw these now.
Yeah, we'll do it. Do it.
Okay,
Advertise it.
audience, go to Infernum_Comics on Instagram, and maybe in the next couple of weeks I'll work on some drawings of this stuff because I like some of these ideas.
Yeah.
Am I going on to the next one?
Yeah, go on. One more.
Okay. One or two. We can push this time limit now because I'm actually thoroughly enjoying myself. So we've had Sideways. Who knows about that character? Batwoman? People know. What about Metamorpho, Dan?
Oh God.
Or we can
Never
just
heard
call
of
the,
him.
or we can just call this story the Element Man. You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Works.
Metamorpho was just in his house being gloomy about looking like Metamorpho, you know? And
Yeah.
his wife is there and he's like depressed and not abusive, but ignorant and ignoring her, you know?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he just hears scratching against his window and his walls as he watches Man-Bat scurry across the outside of his building. And he's like, I was just going to sit here and be in my own, like, edginess and gloom. But I guess I'll be a superhero. And then he gets out and he does his Metamorpho thing. If you don't know Metamorpho, he is a man who has a rock that is of an ancient Egyptian god, by the way, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds a little bit familiar. I'm surprised he doesn't have a split personality.
Oh my God.
No matter what, I'll bring it back to my favourite Moon Boy. So yeah, Metamorpho has like connection to an Egyptian god, whatever, by a rock that makes him have control over all the elements. He can like create chemical reactions, turn himself into different elements, create different elements, you know. And then he defeats Batman by the Man-Bat by that, you know. Man-Bat's like carrying him around. He puts like chemicals into his eyes and stuff. And then they land deep within like Gotham probably has like is it botanical gardens?
Yeah, the Gotham Botanical Gardens, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Poison Ivy is usually here. She's not there today. Okay? They both land into there, and then Metamorpho like digs down into the earth and connects with all the elements of the trees and growth around him, you know? And he starts attacking Man-Bat with all these trees and stuff, and he's turned into practically his entire body into like bark and tree-like stuff, you know? And during this scene, you see the floor sort of wrench open as Metamorpho's doing this, recovering almost like a casket within it. That literally looks like a small coffin with chains looped around it, but because of all of this, that gets destroyed and it flies open. Now, Daniel, you have no idea where this is going, do you?
Nope.
And then all of a sudden, Moon Knight I'm joking. And then it opens and it's just a little... And it's just like a stick that is decayed and gross sat within this coffin. And you're meant to be like, why? Why is that there? You know? Because that doesn't really make sense. Why is there a stick within a coffin within the Botanical Gardens? And this blackened stick sort of then reacts to Element Man's powers and grows into a tree and then starts attacking Man-Bat. And Metamorpho like grabs onto it to like control it, and then all of a sudden he is no longer like within his own body. He's in this like abstract astral state as he's surrounded by screaming faces in the darkness. Okay? You still don't know where this is going, do you?
No.
Okay. He finds out that he's surrounded by these things and they're screaming at him and they're calling him like Metamorpho, survivor of death. That's what they keep saying. And then one face forms out of the darkness and then explains that he is now connected to the rot. If you don't know the rot, it's the opposite of the green, which Swamp Thing is connected to.
Do you just want to make a Swamp Thing comic?
No, this is the rot. Very different and acts slightly differently. So while the green is like about nature and surviving it, the rot is the opposite of that, making it die, decay, etc. He's connected to the rot now, and because I know my Metamorpho lore, they complain about all the many times that he's died and then come back to life. And they reference a couple because that is like the rot can never get hold of him, if you get what I mean. Like they get hold of him for a small amount of time and then, oh no, he survived. Do you get what I mean? So they just fill him with the rot at this point, and he is then sent back to like. And by the way, this is all within his head, sort of thing. But he is now back fighting Man-Bat, and he's his design, but like muted, inverted colors with like the back and stuff all decaying and gross. You know?
Yeah.
Which is just not good. And he has been driven insane by the rot. And they are making him look more and more decayed, like zombie Solomon Grundy-esque by the second. You know? And then he just lengthens his arm and just grabs Man-Bat by the throat. And then just slowly decays him until Man-Bat like uses all of his force to fly out of his grasp. You know?
Yeah.
And Metamorpho's just constantly hearing these words of like telling him he's ugly, that he's like going insane, about how he won't escape death, how with these powers we will thrive, sort of thing. That's the main plot of the rot, is to use Metamorpho's powers from within him to spread their decay. You know?
Yeah.
And he knows he doesn't have a lot of time, so where does he go once there's a problem? He goes to Batman, because where else would you go?
But Batman's in everything.
Batman's in everything, because you know one of these comic covers has to have Batman in it, because otherwise it's just not going to sell.
The main one.
Exactly. So he then goes to Batman and is like, just explains everything, and Batman's like, "What do you want me to do about this? We can call up Swamp Thing, I guess, or I can call up John Constantine, who can then get Swamp Thing, and then hopefully Swamp Thing could travel to here. But we don't have a lot of time, like you said." Metamorpho's like, "Okay, I don't have a plan." And Batman's like, "Fuck." And so he hooks him up to all of his like poison ivy weakness, just trying to get rid of the plant life inside of him. You know? It's obviously not working. He's hooked up to wires and machines, not working. And I want a short montage of Metamorpho and Batman just trying to figure out problems together and just being like, I don't know what to do. Until they come up with the idea of, what if we get rid of your powers, then technically, or hopefully, the rot won't be inside of you anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What if we restore your body to its natural form of being a human without any plant life or whatever? And they're like, okay, that's the only idea we have. Let's go with it. So now this is where you've got to jump the shark with me. Batman and Metamorpho figure out the equation for each chemical property that is within the human body. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So they figure out the human body is like 5% calcium, 10% hydrogen, blah, 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 blah. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And Batman lists all of that out and then just gives it to Metamorpho. And then what is his powers? To change the chemical compounds of stuff, you know? So he then uses his power on himself and he's trying to get the equation just right to where he becomes into a human body again, you know? And he does that, and all of a sudden the voices stop, and he's like, yes, we did it. Bye, Batman. And Batman's like, no, I don't. Maybe you should stick around a little bit longer to see if this all works out. Let's run a few tests. He's like, I'm going to go home to my wife and show her my face for the first time in years. You know?
Yeah.
He then goes home, and his wife is obviously shocked. They're both happy. But he has a running monologue where he's talking about how much he's struggling to keep this form right now. you know?
Yeah.
Like he's holding himself together element by element. And then they have a nice dinner date, everything montage until they get to nighttime, where what would two people do that haven't been able to touch each other for a very long time do?
Sexual intercourse.
Exactly. They start doing that. And mid doing that, it's obviously going to be like artsy, not going to show any nudity, but still show you what it's meant to be. He starts getting into it as a person who hasn't been able to do that in a very long time. And all of a sudden, mid sexual intercourse, he bursts out into like vines and stuff because he has lost his concentration and can no longer hold it together. So, do you know how I was saying he was getting worse and worse by the second? Because it has still been getting worse, but deep within inside of him. So now he doesn't look like Metamorpho. He looks like Clayface Metamorpho Swamp Thing hybrid, you know? All
Bit of a
while
shock for the woman.
Exactly. All while his wife is like holding a blanket over herself, screaming in horror. You know? And then he literally just bursts out of the window and like lands and is like screaming about how he's horrid, and the voices start coming back over the rock, being like, blah, 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 like all of this nonsense. And then they state, "We now control you, Metamorpho." And as that happens, he unleashes his powers, changing everything around him to decay in like an area that slowly is getting bigger. You know? And obviously there's people on the streets, and as that decay barrier gets to them, they drop dead immediately. You know?
Yeah.
Starts off as a 5 foot area around him, 10, 20, and he's running down the road to try and get away from people. And his plan is to go back to the botanical gardens. Because it's like, that's a huge area where there's not a lot of people. Hopefully I can just hide there and then maybe just escape into the coast, whatever, you know? I need to get away because I can't control this right now. And he's killing lots of people on, like, in Gotham. I don't think Batman's going to be very happy, you know?
Yeah.
He
You
gets
should
to the...
jump the gun.
Exactly. He gets to the botanical gardens, and just as he's about to burst through the door and he's killing things, he's starting to kill the plant life, all of a sudden the roof of it shatters open as a huge Venus flytrap comes out and swallows him whole, and takes him into the botanical gardens. And as it does, it starts to decay and fall apart. And then he rolls out, and who stood in front of him? A little woman called Amala Isley, you know? And she's using all of her force to try and keep herself alive. Not even stop him, because she is decaying and she keeps trying to like use the plant life to rejuvenate herself. And she's talking about how it's getting stronger and stronger. Then you're going to have a Metamorpho in his like monster form versus Poison Ivy in this form, you know?
Yeah.
And then she like almost plant life plugs into him to see what's going on inside his head. And then she gets, or like, in her mind is transported to the rot place again, you know? And she like can speak to the rot, and there's going to be a monologue scene of a villain, you know there is. And she learns about the rot's plans to make this go on, like the area of death grow until it's unstoppable. You know?
Yeah.
And she doesn't really want that, because that's against her MO, you know? So she offers a bit, because Poison Ivy was once connected to the green. I'm just going to state that there's still a slight bit of her that's connected to it, you know? It makes sense.
Yeah.
She offers a bit of the green in return to take a portion of the rot. Do you get what I mean? From Metamorpho.
Yeah.
So they both sort of swap, and then Metamorpho goes back to normal, and he's like screaming, "Thank God I look like this." He still looks like Metamorpho, but he no longer looks like Monster Metamorpho, you know?
Yeah.
And then he looks up and sees Poison Ivy, who's now dark red spikes growing out of her. And this sets up the status quo that Poison Ivy is the like the herald of the rot. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So now she's a little bit more evil, blah blah blah, because we've kind of gone in recent times to the anti-villain Harley Quinn version of Poison Ivy. You know, this is bringing her back. She is like skulls and spikes and death and doom. You know. And then Metamorpho, in like a heroic stance, is like, I'm just going to fight her and thoroughly enjoy it like I used to. So he is no longer in this gloomy state because he's experienced much worse. Do you know what I mean? And then it just ends. Because, you know, you've dealt with that story now. Metamorpho has grown as a character, Poison Ivy is a new... And this can just be called The Element Man. And I bet Tom King would have a bloody field day with this. And I'd want to read that. Or I'd want to write it. Which I might also do, because I have issues and can't stop myself.
Fair enough.
Go on, Dan. We know this is the Amalgam Hour podcast, but let's push it. Your last story, Dan, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Okay, we're going to step away from DC for a bit.
Okay, no DC. I'm stepping away. I'm stepping away, Dan. I'm walking away.
That's not going to be in this one. He's been in all of them. He's not in this one.
Why not?
Unless...
Can we put him in?
No, I'm joking.
Is this about Moon Knight?
No.
What's the point then?
Okay. Well, thank you for.
No. Yeah.
This is Nightcrawler, yeah.
Nightcrawler story.
I had one idea that ended up spinning off into two.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was looking into him because I got my facts wrong.
Is this another like? Is he being hunted down for being Catholic? Is this just the Nazi story?
No.
But Nightcrawler.
No.
Okay, go on.
No, I was looking into it, yeah. He always apparently he's always referencing this Munich circus that he was in.
Okay.
You never get to see it.
Okay, is this like a past story? Is this like Nightcrawler Origins?
He's always cool. Like, you know, like he's in X2 and he's like, oh my god, in the Munich circus they could have made the incredible
100% in an X-Men comic they've shown what it is, but we can just take what it looks like from that, but give it this story, you know?
There's never really been much into it. It's just a lot of referencing.
That's fair. And we can just... If a writer was doing this for Marvel, you know they'd have to get every single issue it was ever mentioned and just gather all the information, you know? We're going.
I was, because you know, in the message the behind the scenes back was one of the key words.
Okay.
I turned this into a very tortury... Like, he doesn't actually want to do it, and he's...
Oh, okay, so he's almost like old-timey circus, but he's the elephant, if you know what I mean. Oh, what's that guy who The Greatest Showman was about?
Oh, Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, but not Hugh Jackman. His character, who was actually very evil in real life. We could just do it to be that, you know? Or something similar. Go on.
And basically, I didn't have much here. I just wanted to show, like, a story him being like tortured and having to use his powers to like circus freak and
so you know
that's pretty much a lot of it, like his origin.
What could be really cool?
With him
you know, all the characters in the circus have to be characters themselves, you know, like they're the side characters, and there's got to be a ringleader who could also be a mutant, and that could be like the big thing, you know, where it's like he could be some sort of psychic. Or just... There has to be a reason why Nightcrawler stays there, and so does everyone else. Do you know what I mean? He could maybe have a power to where he can trap people in places. Like, he can... What would be really cool if he can trap their astral form to, like, the Ringtop Circus, you know? Oh, and then you could have a bunch of people who have died in that circus, but their astral form hasn't been able to move on. So it's a haunted circus. See what happens when you tell me a story idea?
Yeah, I know. I was going to have him, like, showing his turn to Catholicism or whatever, his belief, and that was how he got through it. But... That
works as well. Like, maybe the Ringmaster's almost like cultisty like, you know?
Yeah.
And then...
Played by Hugh Jackman.
Oh, Hugh Jackman. Yeah, he's not Wolverine. And then, to turn against that, he has to use his Catholicism to sort of thing. You know he's got to team up with a priest at one point. You know, or he goes to... A priest is comes to the circus, and then as he's about to leave, Nightcrawler stops him and does a confession. You know,
Yeah.
that could be cool. But then you also got
Yeah.
to deal with the thing with people finding Nightcrawler a freak.
Yeah, because he's blue and he teleports.
Yeah, I'd be horrified. He's got a tail. I don't like it.
Yeah, nobody has a tail.
Yeah.
I had the idea of this is like he's getting tortured in this, and then when he goes to the Catacomb, because he has all those like markings on him
Yeah.
because of his Catholicness.
Yeah.
Like he does that to himself because he's so used to the pain of the torture.
That's
It's fine
fair.
with him.
Or maybe
He'd prefer it to
or maybe that's
show
where,
something other than
yeah. Or maybe that they
I want
do
to
it
be done to him. I still want him to do it to himself.
That's fair. That's fair. Or maybe he does
And
it
it gets
to.
really dark at the end, and he
Or maybe
kills
he's.
everybody and leaves.
Or maybe he's forced to do it to himself. You know?
I still like the idea that he does it to himself out of this like belief and like maybe
Yeah.
trying to repent for some sins
That's fair. Maybe
of
the.
killing the people in the circus.
Yeah, maybe that priest I was talking about tells him about the idea of repentance, and then later that night he does that, but then the ringleader like uses that against him, like he's now called the tattooed teleporting man, if you get what I mean. Or like the scared teleporter, whatever.
Tattooed Nightcrawler.
That's cool.
He gets that, that's what he gets the name is there, but
I think Professor X gives him that name in like the first, in one of like
yeah, probably, but
X-Men whatever, which
can
is
have, like, a
really
fancy name.
which is really rude of Professor X, by the way, because Nightcrawlers are worms. It's rude.
That's a bit disrespectful.
And
Maybe
you know,
Professor X is
yeah, and you know
existent.
his circus outfit is just his regular outfit, his like X-Men
like-
outfit, and that's where he gets it from. Okay,
Carried it over.
so we've got the main story, him being tortured, him having to escape from this circus. I'm going to say the ringleader is also a mutant, and that's a contrast between them. And he can have that power that I said.
Yeah, he can just be. The ringleader could just have a power to suppress powers.
He could, or like, yeah, that would be good as well. Like, when, or maybe that he suppresses powers in like a 10 feet circle around him, you know?
Yeah, so he can't be injured, but then he
Yeah.
also uses it. So he keeps them all.
Yeah.
Eh.
Or he can do it like if he sees Nightcrawler starts to leave, he turns off his power, which would be really good because if you turn off Nightcrawler's mutant ability, he turns into a regular dude. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So he sees himself for his human self only when he's being tortured by this guy. You know?
Yeah.
That could be interesting. Come on, we have to come up with the circus around him. You know we have
It
to
could
have...
have like.
Oh, go on.
Could
carry
have
on.
like I can't remember. One of the films have like these collars. Deadpool 2, there you go, where they have the collars
Yeah.
that dampens the powers. He could have that.
He could have that, or...
So
yeah.
it's like he could have obviously the powers so that when they're doing their thing, if they try and escape, he can
Yeah.
stop
Well,
them. But
Yeah, it depends.
when he's
the
trying to have a
time-
nap,
When the time is. Yeah. Well, it's like he just cages, because I'm
for
pretty sure
logical reasons,
you can cage
Nightcrawler
Nightcrawler.
could still just escape.
I guess.
No, he says he doesn't like going through walls,
Yeah,
but he can still just do it.
I guess. Something like that. That's why I like the idea he can trap people within a certain area. Because then even if he can uses his power, like it could be cool if he tries to bamf out there, he appears on the other side, and then all of a sudden he starts to like run away from the circus, and then his powers start like going into themselves. So he starts disappearing piece by piece until he bamps back inside the circus. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, he can't escape.
Or if it's the astral idea, he bamps outside, but when he bamps outside, his body is outside the circus, but his astral projection form is still trapped within the circus. So every day they have to go out and grab Nightcrawler by his ankle and drag his body back into the circus. And you know there's got to be a scene where like there's another astral projection form of someone who's died and they try to go into his body, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Come on, we have to make the characters. Who else is in this circus? Doesn't have to be like known characters.
The Blob.
No, because it's got to be during the past. It can be like characters we create.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh.
there's got to be a horrifying like clown not serial killer, but someone who's evil and like the henchman. You know,
Yeah.
because who doesn't like scary clowns? You got to have the strong man as well.
Yeah.
Come on, Dan. Workshop these characters. Do you know how they usually have the mermaid lady?
Yeah. It's just an actual mermaid lady.
No, or I'm thinking because people from Atlantis in the Marvel universe are bright blue, have gills, have like webbed fingers and toes and stuff. That for whatever
Just
reason
kidnapped an Atlantean.
they've kidnapped an Atlantean and is keeping them there. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've got one Atlantean, Nightcrawler, ringleader with like whatever powers.
Named brand new original character.
Yeah, and it can be, and then it could be like if this story did well, you could then bring that character to the future as if he, whatever, unless he
all
dies
of the
at
characters around them were just original. No, you named characters.
Exactly, and that would be good because then it's like, then there's no coincidences, you know, and it could be in the back of one shot you see someone who's at this circus and it's Wolverine because obviously he doesn't age. So this is
And you could have like.
Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say you could have like at one point like Professor X is just in there, and that's just how he finds out about him.
I guess, but that would kind of be like
He has nothing to do with him escaping because he's man wheelchair.
Yeah.
But this is how it's like pre-X-Men, and he finds out about him through this.
Oh, it could be really cool if like he psychically connects with Nightcrawler and is like, "I'm sure you're a mutant. How can I help?" And he's like, "I am trapped here. You can't do anything." And then Professor X leaves. Nightcrawler then escapes later, and then it goes straight on to the X-Men story where Nightcrawler is introduced on the X-Men team, where he's been like hunted down by people with pitchforks and stuff. You know?
I kind of still want it to end him killing the ringleader and helping everybody else escape.
Okay, so is everyone else nice then, like the Atlantean and because I'm thinking ringleader, henchman, clown, everyone else is nice. You know?
Yeah, they're all in the same boat.
Yeah, the same situation. They're not all mutants because we can't just have like 17 mutants. You know?
You could just have a hairy lady.
Yeah. So we have an Atlantean. We have a mutant. What else could we have? Don't think. Technically, we could have an Inhuman, but I don't think they were on Earth properly unless you were the Royals.
Yeah.
Who else could it be? Who's an old superhero? I can't even think of any right now. Technically, you could have the Blob, and that would make their interactions more interesting in the future because I don't know what his backstory is. I feel like he might have just turned up.
Blob. He could just be there.
Exactly. He could be the Blob, and then he could be like, do you know in some films where it's like it's the bully character, but at the end of the day, they still don't deserve what is being happened to them. You know?
I think it'd be interesting if, like you said, Wolverine is there.
Yeah.
Shortly after his adamantium experiment, and he's there, sort of like this animalistic state.
That could be cool. Like he's caged to the wall. Like even though he can trap, the villain can trap people with inside the circus. He is still caged and feral, and he's got
sort of be like the end. It'd be like a situation like, so I guess sort of like they did in the film. Where it's like Nightcrawler would help him escape. Wolverine would still have no memory of any of these interactions when he gets more to his just pure animal acting on instinct at this point.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure Nightcrawler is meant to be in Europe and stuff. Did you say this is what? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Did you say it was pre-adamantium or slightly after it?
Just after it. He's just escaped.
I guess that could work if you could say that the Weapon X experiment was done in another country and he's sort of fleeing across.
Yeah. They never. I don't think they ever really state where it is.
No, I don't know.
To be honest, continuity is all over the place. So
So we've got really hairy Animal Man, and they could call him the Wolf Man. That would make sense. Or the Wolverine, which could be
Yeah.
funny. Like, almost he doesn't have any memories of this time in his life, but that name sticks with him. Sort of thing. What else? We got the Atlantean, we got the
It could
mutant.
just be that sort of thing.
Yeah. And then there's got to be...
Freak, just like, Planet of the Apes was the big gorilla.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he is. There's got to be a woman... There's got to be a woman there who is a freak for whatever reason, Either they then turn against Nightcrawler in the last bit, or when she is freed, she decides not to stay with Nightcrawler because he's damaged and stuff, and he chooses... It could be... If there's a woman there, and it's the romantic subplot, But then when they get out, he chooses Catholicism over her and goes to the church. Do you know what I mean? That works. And there's probably another freak show.
Portray that as his only sense of freedom.
Yeah, which is cool. And there's got to be a flexible person there. There's got to be there's two flexible people and they're twins. That makes sense. Whatever, doesn't matter. That's freak show type stuff.
Conjoined.
Yeah. Oh, flexible conjoined twins. That's cool. Ooh. Okay. I like this idea as well. What would you call this? Nightcrawler Big Top? Because Big Top is what the circuses are called. What's other circusy words?
Nightcrawler Freak Show.
That also works. Okay, so we've now pitched 4 Tom King styled stories, and if Tom King ever writes any of these,
say the names so I can make a TikTok clip.
Okay, so we have the Tom King story. We've given you The Element Man, Sideways Through Time and Space, World War II Batwoman, and Nightcrawler Freak Show. Now, if Tom King does ever write any of these, we will sue. But it will also be cool, If I ever get to work for DC or Marvel, these are my stories.
We'll love it, but we will sue.
We will sue. 100%. But there you go. And I'm actually quite happy with a lot of these. I would read the hell out of these. Especially with the titles we've given them. Ooh, I want to go off and draw them now. So, like I said, go to Infernum_Comics. Maybe you'll see a few glimpses of them. And tell us what you think about these stories down below. Or maybe some characters that you're interested in getting Tom King style stories for. Because I have loads more. I wanted a kind of Tom King style story for Invisible Woman. Just called Invisible, dealing with Mr. Fantastic ignoring her and stuff, Yeah. And it was going to be a love trilogy between her, Mr. Fantastic, and Namor. But we move. So tell us about a bunch of names of characters you'd like to see, and where else can you find our stuff then?
Everywhere. InfernumComics.com. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere.
Exactly, and they're all down below in the description, as well as we have a Linktree page attached to our Instagram handle. If you want to see what we're currently doing right now with our webcomic, Hero of an Unsigned Mind, go to infernumcomics.com and you can read there. It's updated every 2 weeks. I hope you all thoroughly enjoyed that webcomic, and I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. Thank you.